Hello and welcome. It is day 154. So let's find an opponent and begin here. All right, I'm at 1657. My rating was higher, but it's gone down some. And I'm playing a 1777. So could be a tough game. All right, we'll try this Jabava London setup. See what our opponent does here. All right, already they're thinking. So we have the Jabava London with the bishop on f4, the knight on c3, and the pawns at d4, d5. So they play this move to prevent my knight from coming forward. All right, so we're going to play e3. It supports our central pawn. Okay, they play e6, a solid formation, kind of blocking in their light squared bishop. So now, what to do? Guess I'll go here first to keep their knight out of my position. And then that gives me time to decide if I want to move my knight to f3 or e2. All right, so my opponent is thinking, what are some good moves that my opponent could make? Well, they could push this bishop, maybe to d6 or even e7. Which is a little more defensive, and then they can get ready to castle kingside. I have to decide, how I want to proceed here. Another option is bishop to b4 here. That could be a little tricky. If that is played, okay, it is played. Now, I have to decide, do I ignore that? Do I attack it immediately? Do I bring the other knight in here to help defend? If I do that, and their knight jumps in here, do I really want to do that, though? And, what is better, to bring the knight up here to f3 or to go here, knight to e2, to back this knight up? If his knight jumps in and adds more pressure to this pinned piece, so should I immediately put the question to this bishop? That's something to think about. Why not? We'll just immediately do that. At worst, he gives up his bishop pair, taking our knight. If he captures, okay, so he does not do that. All right, so now we probably want to play knight up to f3. Maybe get ready to castle kingside. What are the other options here? Do we want to push in the center? Is it too early to do that? No, because, well, it is. If we do that, it can just pick off our bishop here. Okay. If I develop my knight here, maybe that's a little better. All right, I don't want to burn up too much time. I'm already a little bit behind on time here. Okay, we have a capture. They go ahead and now if the queen goes down here, attacking this pawn. I mean, I guess I could just bring my rook over. Um, but I'm kind of ready to castle here. This knight could jump up here to e5. So this is one advantage of letting them. So I let them trade off their good bishop for my bad bishop, which was blocked by my pawns that were on the same colored squares as my dark squared bishop. So once they trade that off, their good bishop is gone. They're left with their bad bishop, and I still have my good bishop. It has doubled these pawns, but the d4 pawn and f4 pawn are doing a good job of locking down this this e5 square. I'm ready to castle. Probably kingside castling would be best here. Where is this opponent from? Egypt, huh? All right. Okay, so one thing I may want to do is drop this knight back to here to e2 at some point, push this c pawn up to c3 maybe to help fortify this central pawn. But I probably want to castle first. So get castle to safety. Okay, so we do have the attack here on this pawn. So I probably just have to go here, rook to b1. Another option, I want to go there and attack. Could do that as well, attack the queen. So we'll go ahead and attack the queen. He may try and check me, but I can block with the pawn. He just gave up his queen. All right, well, he just gave up his queen there, so now we're pretty much winning. Let's see if he plays on or if he's disgusted and resigns. All right, the opponent has resigned. All right, just a blunder. All right, they want a rematch, but we have to do a game review here. So looks like I played at 95.7% accuracy versus their 74.4. And it looks like I'll have to show you this. Let me move my image off the screen here. This is probably the highest I've ever played rating wise, but it's a short game, so it doesn't really count. Here, I'll move my image. It says I played at a 2400 level and they played at 1600. Okay, but did I really play at a 2400 level just for a few moves in an opening there? But anyway, let's take a look at everything. All right. So it says that well done pouncing on that free piece. The game was pretty much even. And then, yeah, I guess their mistake jumped the game up. All right. I didn't make any inaccuracies, misses, or blunders. They had one mistake and one blunder. So we'll take a look at that, see what they were. In the opening, I played 95.6% accuracy. They played 91.7%. I played 96.1% accuracy in the middle game versus their 13.8% because it wasn't a very long middle game. So yeah, I can't say anything too great about that. I just won because of a blunder, and it was a short game. So let's do this quick review. See if the computer blasts through the moves. Yeah, that was a 10-move game, so pretty short there. What do we have? This is the Jabava London setup, and they played c6 here. All right, so now this was a mistake. It looks like they should have captured the knight, wrecking my pawns, leaving me with an isolated A pawn, doubling my pawns on c3. That would have fortified my central D pawn even more, and allowed maybe my rook to get counterplay on this half open B file in the future, possibly. So that was their mistake. They should have captured. All right, and then the big blunder here, which allowed me to just grab their queen. All right, I'll look at a little bit of the computer analysis here from the beginning and explain things a little bit more. So d4 is played. If you have different options in the opening with white, especially you beginners out there, you might want to start with e4 because that usually leads to more open positions, more tactics, and that's what you really need to learn, especially as beginners. But everybody can improve on their tactics probably. So d5 is a good response, keeping things equal in the center, preventing me from playing e4 and getting both pawns in the center, because then they could just capture that pawn. So I play knight to c3. Now that could allow me to push this pawn in the center possibly, but I'm setting up the Jabava London, and that involves the next move here, bishop to f4, and then this knight to f6 move. Now that prevents this, or discourages this e4 move, because then they can just capture and gain a pawn. So even though this says queen's pawn opening Shigorin variation, nowadays this is known as the Jabava London system, named after Grandmaster Badur Jabava, I believe is the pronunciation of his name. So what does this do? The bishop lines up on the c7 pawn. The knight could possibly try and jump forward and fork the rook and the king. So this move is played to prevent that knight from jumping forward, and it also fortifies this central d5 pawn. All right, so I do the same, pushing this e pawn and fortifying my d pawn, but it gets I have a bad bishop here, but it's outside of the pawn formation, so it's a little bit better than their bad bishop. Now once they push this, their pawn is kind of trapped in here, so my bishop is a little better than theirs. Our knights are about equal, and they have this nice pawn wedge here, this triangle that's usually pretty strong. So I just developed my other bishop here, taking control of this diagonal. Apparently they like a3 even better, which prevents the bishop from pinning my knight. So that's the best move according to the computer. And now it looks like instead of playing this move now, which once I play that, the best move is to capture here anyway, and it kind of wastes that move. It looks like it would have been better for me to just immediately develop my knight up to f3. It looks like that's the best move, or even maybe h3. What does that do? Keep the knight from coming forward. Maybe allow me to push the g pawn in the future. All right. All right, so I attack, but now that swings the game in black's favor. So apparently, might have been better to play this a3 move to just prevent that bishop from even being able to pin me in the first place. All right, so they retreat. This is a mistake. Apparently, it would have been better to capture, and then I would capture. And in this position, the game is about even. It looks like queen to a5 might be best, threatening to capture this pawn. So here, now this is interesting. I would think queen to d2 would be the move that you would want to play here. The only thing about that, the knight could jump down attacking your queen and you'd have to give up your bishop pair. The recommendation is bishop to d6, preventing the king from being able to castle. And then you could give up that pawn, but they recommend the queen not even going after this pawn. So I don't know, that looks pretty crazy. F3 is another possibility, keeping the knight from being able to move forward, and you might end up having a pawn push to e4, backed up by an f3 pawn here. But, let's look at this number one recommended move. Is this really so good? It keeps the king from castling. Now it's saying that's not the best move, that queen to d2 protecting this pawn is better. Because, what if they do this? Well, then the best thing to do is move our king over. Then we could jump our knight up to e2 and chase that queen away. But we would be down a pawn here. So they recommend queen to a5. Then, queen up to f3. Okay, knight at b to d7 is the only move that keeps black in the lead. Oh, but now it's saying white is ahead here, even though we're behind a pawn. So I'm going to play this a little bit further because I'm not sure why they think this is so good. c5, why would you play that move? Maybe to activate your knight. So they recommend capturing, then pushing e5 here, threatening a fork. Then we should play bishop up to f5, attacking the knight. Knight captures, queen to g3, no way. Just giving up the bishop there. Yeah, this is some complicated stuff because now they can capture, we capture, forking these two pieces. They castle this way. Whew, yeah, so this would be a complicated game. That's about all I'm going to go into that. But, I mean, those are some lines you could look at on your own if you're interested in playing this Jabava London system. All right, so, this is a mistake here. So now it looks like queen to f3 is the best move. What did I end up playing? Knight to f3? That's still a good move, but they continue to recommend queen up here to f3, which does allow me to castle to the queen side. And then bishop takes f4, and then the recommendation is for the queen to capture to avoid doubling the pawns. Then b6, e4, capture, knight takes on e4. Now we have this pawn that's, oh, we can't capture, the queen can't capture that, or we have a discovered, we capture their knight with check and a discovered attack on the queen. So That's why they would play this first. Then our queen should capture. That way the king cannot castle, because then we would have a checkmate on h7. So the bishop goes here, lining up on our queen. Although now they're saying queen to c7 might be even better. We can castle, lining up on their queen. And now knight to d7 here. Knight to f3. Queen to c7. So now there's this threat on our queen. But looks like we should ignore that. Centralize our rook. They can play h6. And now what? Queen to e3 to get out of the line of fire of the bishop. And finally, they can go ahead and castle. So another way the game could go. All right, let's wrap up this video here. Let's look at the last few moves. So I played knight to f3. They capture, which is best, breaking my pawns apart here, doubling them. So now the queen, I guess they thought, oh, I'm forking, but this one is protected by the knight here on d4, of course. So now, what is best here? The best move is to ignore this attack and just castle, apparently. Huh. But what did I play? I just played this knight attack, which I guess maybe they weren't expecting that. Because now, if they move the queen here and check me, thinking they're forking the king and the knight, I can just move a pawn up here, move up here to c3, and now the check will be blocked and the queen will be guarding the knight. And then we have a threat of pushing forward here and chasing the queen even more. So, then the blunder was made. So blunder is made, and we just captured the queen. What would have been best? Queen to c7. So that is what they should have played. And now the recommendation is what? Knight to e5, grabbing this nice outpost. b6. I don't know. This looks a little tricky. I mean, what if they move down here and attack my knight? Well, then I guess the other knight, I could jump forward here. All right. That's a possibility. So they recommend b6, which maybe allows this c-pawn to push forward next. So castling, and rook to c1 now, lining up on the queen. Okay, and maybe threatening to push this pawn up to c4. So bishop to a6. Now what? We ignore that and just centralize the rook on the half-open file. We have a capture. And now here the recommendation is to double the pawns. Or capture with the queen if you don't want to double the pawns. But if you do this, you have another centralized pawn. Even though these are doubled, they do control a lot of squares in the center. And now we're lining up on the queen as well. So what do they recommend? g6, giving the king some breathing room maybe. g4. Okay. Rook to e8, because now they can threaten to kick my knight out of there, and this pawn, if the knight moves, the pawn will come under fire. So queen to d2 to protect the pawn. f6 gets rid of my knight. Knight back to f3, and queen to d6, maybe centralizing a little bit more. Now they're saying knight to g7 would have been better. But anyway, that's how the game could have gone instead of this blunder where I just capture and then my opponent resigned. All right, well, this is a shorter video today. I'll wrap this up. Feel free to leave any comments, like and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you for watching and have a super chess day.